Hello again. Hello. Here it continues. Here it continues. It continues here. What's that mean? Nothing. It means nothing. I keep thinking about this podcast that I'm doing and how much I liked it before I shared it with anybody. Because actually, what I did was I recorded a number of episodes, and I was just thinking, oh, wouldn't that be fun if I actually I acknowledged it publicly so that it was a podcast in real life. And it's more fun. It's more fun when you can imagine something rather than when you have to do it. Because when you have to do it, then it's on the way out and it's not in your brain anymore, and therefore isn't subject to the vision that you want for it. Because as long as it's in your brain, you can envision it perfectly, and you can envision a perfect world where the thing that you want to carry out would be carried out perfectly. And that's what your dreams are. Your dreams are the ways that you want to carry out life perfectly, and ways that you would imagine life to be perfectly if this worked out. If I was a professional golfer, my dream job is a professional golfer. I wish that I was that. That would be the best. Because in golf, you're entirely in control of your score and how well you do. And if you're a professional golfer, you're entirely in control of your career and how much money you make, and it's just up to you. And if you're good enough to be a pro golfer, you can just travel from city to city and make millions of dollars, because there's tons of money in golf. If you're good enough, there's tons of money, even if you're at the web.com tour, if that's still a thing, or net.web.com tour, I think maybe is what it's called now. Was it the net.org PGA event space, or I forget. Isn't that funny when people bring up MySpace and like, oh, remember MySpace? People do that all the time. We do remember MySpace, and it is always a joke. I understand why. It's because it is always forever a joke. It's a joke 1,000 times over, forever. Just the giant vacant lot of the internet. Because even though is it still a thing? I think it might be. I think it still exists. It's just like nobody has a MySpace. Nobody has one. Nobody. Okay, so let's figure out what I'm going to talk about now, because I really don't know. I'm trying to get to what it is that I want to talk about so that I can talk about it. Because Well, I'm trying to get to what I want to talk about so that I can talk about it. Let's talk about individuals. Here's what I want to make sure that I do no matter what, though. I'll record a podcast, and then I will end up listening back through it again because I edit it. Because sometimes there's spaces, or like I walked away or something. There's nothing wrong with it, obviously. There's nothing wrong. I don't edit it out. I don't edit anything. Everything's perfect to begin with, and then it just comes. No, I do edit a few things out sometimes, but I'm trying to not. Like it's a sin. Like, oh, why didn't you confess all your sins? Why didn't you say all the things you did wrong? I have to voluntarily give all the information about myself all the time. That is part of confessional culture. Sometimes people get locked into this idea where it's like a vice if they don't share all their shit. Like, oh, like just the more confessing and the more these are my insecurities I do, that like the better off it is, because that's honesty. Like, that's not all of that. There's a million things for you to be honest about. For you yourself, there's a billion things for you to be honest about. You pick and choose what you're honest about if you want to go further and go further levels of honesty. You don't have to make it the worst things about you, like stuff that information you would never volunteer. You don't have to volunteer everything, and you can keep secrets. You can keep secrets. You can. Ha 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 ha. Well, I'm saying obviously you can keep secrets. Why do I do that? I question everything I do. Like any phrase that I say a number of times, I'm like, oh, why do you do that? In an attempt to make it so that I'm not definable. I stop using the patterns that I used before. Like I stop saying the same phrases. And as long as I listen through my podcast when I'm editing it, I can hear it'd be better if I found a way that I wasn't listening to it again at all, or if I just made it, or if I just edited it as I went, or like right when I did it, so I sort of remembered what I said. What was I talking about? Keep secrets. Have secrets. It's okay to have a secret. The world isn't supposed to know everything about you. And the world isn't supposed to know everything about you, and don't get anxious. Don't get anxiety over like I haven't told all these people this. Like at least too much. You don't need to feel guilty just about not saying everything to everybody. Like, do you expect to live at a level of 100% trust? Do you? 100% trust with the people around you? You're incapable of that. Don't try to be 100% trustworthy. You'll die in the process, or you'll just get really anxious. You get really anxious if you are trying to do a bunch of stuff that you're not able to do, or if you end up in situations where you're portraying characters of when you're portraying your character disingenuously. And another thing I thought when I was listening back over one of the ones I did was like, at least in this one I was like, I kept calling things the thing. It was like the thing. But and then you remove the thing, and it was one where I was explaining spectrums, and I was explaining spectrums, and so that's what I was doing. It's like I won't just let myself be the guy that explains spectrums sometimes. I just have to accept that that's what I am. Because people need to know what a spectrum is and how important it is, because it's an infinite frame of reference. That's what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying is, what's important about a spectrum? Here it is. This is what's important about a spectrum, in case you didn't understand. In case you fucking didn't understand, you goddamn idiots. Jesus, you fucking people are stupid. How the fuck... I cut myself off. I don't know why. I was going, and then I cut myself off. I don't know. I was going, I was on a roll, and then I cut myself off. So I listened to myself babble on about the thing a number of times, like in key situations when I could have specified a better vocabulary word, and you say the thing because you're like, oh, the thing, because you want to. Sometimes you generalize something like that in an attempt to be more relatable, but sometimes it comes from a more narcissistic state of mind where you think people already know what you're talking about. Like, that would be a really maybe high-level definition of narcissism, is if you always talked as if people knew what you were talking about. That's what narcissism is. Narcissism. Oh my God, narcissism. Oh my God, the deals we put in, the deal we go through in trying to call people narcissists. Like, Like narcissism is a really important or really exciting word for everybody. Everybody's getting on board with using narcissism. Like Trump is a narcissist is an easy point of reference for a narcissist. You say that Trump is a narcissist, and you're supposed to say that he's a narcissist. And if you don't, then then you hate liberals and hate gays or something like that. If you don't call Trump a narcissist, is he a narcissist? Yeah, like he has a big ego, but narcissist, I would say overall is a word used by the left to tell the right or tell people who like to share their own opinions or share their own subjective truth that they don't have a right to speak. This is because you're just a narcissist. It's a labeling term. It's the flavor of the month, flavor of the year, of the last couple of years, one of them at least, that the left uses to label the right or to label people, and tell them that they can't share their opinions. What's another one that the left uses, a label that the left uses to say, like you're a narcissist, or just that you have an ego. I can't think of I could think of one. I can think of one. I'm just impatient. I can't do it. I'm just expecting that people expect me to move on. And clarity, I hope to get to a point where I hope that my podcasts are like this, where it's a more clear speaking, because then like better words better words come out, like more specific words that are more exacting. I will be able to say them, as long as I just allow for clarity of my mind and for the free delivery of my speech. If you have patience, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Is it going to be patience? Is it going to be narcissism? I don't know. I'm waiting for one of them to jump out. Here it is. And here we go. Who wants to be heard today? Who wants to be heard? You just gotta let yourself be heard. You got to let yourself be heard. Sometimes you build up stress in places of your body, and you have to listen to those parts of your body so that you can hear them and understand where the stress is stored, so you can release the stress. And your body tries to tell you that. You got to listen to your body to make sure. And then once you realize, oh wow, like I have stress stored up in my arms. This is a technique that's out there. At least a train of thought, set of beliefs about. But in my experience is truthful. Like if you take the time to focus on parts of your body, you will realize that some parts of your body are more stressful than other parts of your body and are storing up stress. And then if you focus on like, oh, you feel like your knee has stress in it, or it's like it's the thing that is throbbing, or the thing that seems to be making the most noise, or where it has the most energy pulsating from it, of all the things you're focusing on in your body. If you just take the time to focus on your physical body, I mean, if you are taking the time and having the patience to figure out where the stress is stored in your body, and you realize like, oh, it's in my knee, then you just think about what's going on with your knee, and then you just think about it and accept it, and then you can accept that you've stored up stress. Like maybe you stored up stress there just by you're in stressful situations and you're like really tense in certain parts of your body. To me it wouldn't make logical sense, but like I've been told about it, and like I understand how it works. So that's why I'm going to great lengths to try to explain its validity. Patience. What was I saying? Like if you just had the patience to it was something interesting that I wanted to talk about. Oh, it was something like if I just had the patience to I probably have to go back and listen. If I just had the patience to figure out like what I was saying and what was I trying to figure out. If I just had the patience to figure it out. But anyways, narcissism, patience, not the same thing. Patience, people are impatient. People are impatient. Yes. People are impatient, but I am very impatient. I come from a long line of impatience. At least one side of my family, namely my mom's side of the family, is generally it's slightly but entirely impatient, and so that impatience. But it's not like there's times that they're not patient. I'm just describing impatience in general. Okay, so impatience. People aren't patient to try to figure out what you are saying, and they don't like. You could be saying anything, considering that what you're saying is from your opinion and from your reality and based on your view of reality and the set of beliefs that have come to shape your reality. Whatever you're saying is from your reality and it's from your perspective. Like if you are attempting to be relatable to another person, you have to stop whatever's going on in your head with your reality and actually try to figure out, like if you're trying to be relatable to another person, when you're talking to them, you have to stop thinking about just what the motivation is behind your speech and think about how that sounds to another person. If you're trying to be relatable, you have to stop and actually think, oh, but they're this way. So if you want to be relatable, if you want to be patient enough to get your point across, or be patient enough to have a relationship, or have a relationship, I just want to go into back into my brain though. And I just want to explain that, like, my brain will tell me to start talking about something else, even though I've started to focus on patience. And I do that sometimes. Well, first of all, I don't really like to bring up really concrete points of reference, or I'm averse to it as I'm doing it. And I try to avoid it because concrete points of reference aren't interpretive, and they don't, like, I don't want to be formulaic, but I'm not trying to be, like, I'm not trying to be. That's just something I do naturally though. What I'm saying about formulaic is, the more that you're just referencing things that other people said and did, like it's stuff that somebody already said or did. And the more that it's not from your own point of reference, the more that it's the more that you're just saying things that have already happened. They are from the authority of somebody else. Somebody else is the author over things that have already happened. If I'm just referencing something that somebody else said, so then I'm averse to bringing up. And that can go for examples of my life because they've already happened and they've already made the impact that they did. But it's more a thing for if I'm trying to bring up an example of something that somebody said. Like I would like to bring up things that Jordan Peterson said, or stuff like he's well known for talking about Adam and Eve. And I want to do an episode where I just talk about the story of Adam and Eve, but he sort of already did that. But I'd have to reference that, like, he's sort of well known for exploring the ideology behind it. But then I'd have to compare my take on it against his, because his take on it and just the fact that he emphasizes it was really influential to me. And so I try to avoid points of reference from other people, or even sometimes concrete examples from my life. But patience, but like what I'm saying is I try to go back into my head even while I decide to talk about patience, and that is me being unrelatable. Is if I just drone on and on about the thoughts that are coming out of the depths of my soul. If that's me being unrelatable, that's just me indulging in my own subjective reality. But I do like to indulge in my own subjective reality, and that's the reason that you live at all. So that that's the reason that you get to say that you have value, and because you have this subjective reality that is the collection of all your emotions, but emotions specific to you, and it says that you have emotions and that you are real, because you can only really have value if you understand that you have emotions, because you only have value if you understand that there's things that you feel that other people don't feel, and that only comes from your subjective reality. And I want to go back into my subjective reality, even though I've decided to talk about this point of reference, patience, because if I do make it about a topic, then that is a point. I'm zeroing in on a point of reference. But the reason that my podcast overall is abstract, or I talk about one topic in each episode, is because that is as specific or as referential that I want to make it is one word. That's too referential. Not really. It's almost like it's too referential, even if it's just one word. But I just want to talk about one point of reference and then deal with it like it is an abstraction, because you deal with patience like it is an abstraction when you just understand everything that patience is related to, and you can really only unearth the things that you think the things that you realize you think patience is related to if you talk about them. But you at least for me, I realize them by talking about them. But it's like I have the point of reference, patience, in my mind. I have patience in my mind, but to me, it's related to all these things. And then as I talk about it, it's just kind of like expanding the point of reference to the point that you see how it's related to everything else, rather than that it is just one word, because it is so much more than one word. It's an abstraction. There's a million million manifestations of patience that are related to patience, that can be explored and can be explained. There's millions of manifestations of patience. But if I just go back into my subjective reality, rather than considering that this is a podcast that people listen to it, rather than considering, I have to go in and try to figure out what people are hearing while I'm saying it, and that is, if you don't do that, then you're not relatable. So I have to be careful that I don't just drone on and on about my subject, only in the thoughts coming out of nowhere, so that I can be relatable. But I often find that as I'm talking about patience, I just want to even explain why I'm thinking about patience. And then because the reason that I started onto this train of thought, I was like, I want to explain my troubles with explaining it. Was part of the reason. And I realized that most of this, I am just talking now about my subjective reality, because that's where my mind is. I'm talking about my subjective reality, just the things in my brain, rather than patience. Because I am being unrelatable. I've decided to not be relatable, but I'm now being relatable about a different point of reference, which is just that I'm talking about abstraction with regard to just myself, or the personhood of my mind. No, I mean, now I'm just making shit up. The personhood of my mind, the characterization of the personhood, of the actualization of the identity of the person, of the identity of the of the guy that isn't, and then of within it, from within the reality comes then from truth comes the subjective identity, and then identity through that comes the actualization of the subjective thoughts in my soul. And so if you believe in the depths of subjection, then you understand that identity comes from a place of understanding. Okay, so yes. See, I'm being unrelatable. Did you like that? I'm being unrelatable. Ha ha ha. Suck it. I'm unrelatable, bitches. And if you're unrelatable, people don't know what you're about to say, and then you don't have a pattern. The more unrelatable you are, and the more that you just are spewing your brain, the more that you're undefinable, and the less that you're comprehensible to a certain pattern. The less that you are a pattern, then you're not a pattern. Because if you are just what your mind is saying all the time, that is what makes you undefinable, but that's what makes you genuine. That's what makes you genuine, but then you compromise on being relatable and existing in reality if you're only just spewing the thoughts in your brain, but then you're undefinable, you're abstract. But okay, so I will get back to patience, and then I will go back to it. But so I wanted to, the reason I got onto this train of thought where I got off of patience is because I wanted to start explaining my trouble in explaining it, because I have a new thought that now is competing with patience to be the dominating thought of this episode. There's all these competitions because sometimes I feel like I am just a giant argument, and then whatever comes out of my mouth, whatever at any one time is starting to win the argument, that's just what wins the argument at a given time. And then it's just like, I am that for a time. You're a giant argument. And it's like these things these truths I want to say about patience and feeling limited, because that's the new one. That's the new train of thought that's trying to compete with patience to be the thing of the podcast, because it's just what I want to say the most. And now I'm trying to arrive at a conclusion as to what I want to say the most. And I'm only spewing my subjective reality because I'm a narcissist. But that's the thing, that narcissism, we throw that word around, and then you are like, you shouldn't be able to speak because you're a narcissist, because why do you get to share your own opinions? You're just going to cite your mind for everything. You're just going to cite your mind. Oh, why do you know so much? Why do you want to talk so much? Why do you think you want to be heard? Why do you think you're entertaining? It's because you're a narcissist. You just have ego. That doesn't mean anything to be a narcissist. That just means that you think that you are real as opposed to that you are false. That just means that you think that you have something to say and that your subjective point of view, your mind, has value, as opposed to you are exactly like everybody else and you have no distinguishable characteristics. And, as opposed to that, which is silly. Narcissism is a word that's used by the left for you to, and my thought is right now, like, if I don't talk about narcissism in this podcast, I'm not interested in it enough to use another podcast about it. So I did want to talk about patience though. And I did want to, when I was talking about patience, I wanted to explain my trouble in explaining, and now I keep trying to go back into explaining the break I had from patience. And see, and now it's just self-indulgent. Yeah, so now it's just self-indulgent. It's like, it's pretty much, I'm just holding you captive at this point. Like, oh, is he gonna say it? I'm just holding you captive, and I'm just rambling on. But and then I just want to explain my trouble with explaining it anytime something happens, but I'm like, that's not a good podcast. You can't just over explain every flaw every time that something fucks up, because sometimes I need to plug in my computer because for some reason I didn't start it plugged in when we began, and then I lose my train of thought, and then I think that the whole thing is shit and I won't be able to gain back what I was saying. Okay, so when I broke off from patience, I wanted to talk about my trouble explaining, because I had trouble. I was thinking about how just people limit themselves, and how much I was limiting myself. Like, I limit myself sometimes when I'm talking, because I'll be like, oh, has it been 25 minutes? How am I going to do it? How am I going to talk for 35 more minutes? How am I going to keep the train of thought? Like, I limit myself in my ability to, like, I limit my imagination to say that I can talk about something for 35 more minutes when it's true that I can. It's just a battle. You're in a battle with yourself. You're in a battle with self-doubt all the time. And it's not just me. Yes, it's obviously not just me that's in a battle with self-doubt. The battle with self-doubt is the battle. That's the battle. You have to stop. You have to try to not doubt yourself your entire life. And the older you get, the stronger the self-doubt voice is, because you have more and more doubt as you get older. I mean, doubt is pretty much the way to death anyway. The more you doubt, the more that you understand yourself to be limited and incapable of going. Like, that just happens as you're older. Like, all these moms that can't drive on a freeway past 55, like, that is a result of age, because you limit yourself. You say, I'm not able to do that. Something that you're perfectly capable of doing, that you've done thousands of times. It's just this doubt that creeps in your mind and then limits your ability to move. And eventually you're so limited in your ability to go places that you're just sitting on your couch, losing all the strength and all your muscles, and then slowly dying. And like, the physical takeover is at least in some way real. I mean, I think it's just strongly related to limit belief, limit ideology. I'm the king of limit ideology. I'm the king prince of it. Narcissism. Okay, so I will try to talk about narcissism, because you're supposed to feel insecure about if you sound like a narcissist. And I would just like to say that if I am a narcissist, I want to be the best narcissist. I want it to be a competition. I want to destroy the authority of that word to the point that, like, people want to have a better narcissism than I do. I want to be the most narcissistic. I want to talk about